Yes, maybe just as a small introduction, since it's an Egyptological lecture, more or less, and since many of you are probably not Egyptologists or classicists, in general, what is the papyrological material of the Museo Egizio? In general, what that we are one of the among the 10 biggest collection of papyrus collections worldwide. We have papyri in 8 languages, so you see an overview, in 7 scripts, and which cover in total about 3,500 years of written material culture. So starting about 2,500 before with the oldest papyri written in hieratic from the Old Kingdom, till actually, and we count this, of course, the Arabic so with the Byzantine period. And the oldest manuscript we have here are from the 9th and 10th century after CE. The text types, actually, we have everything what you would expect in writing, which is administrative text, funerary text, of course, biographical text, legal texts, letters, royal text. So it's just here as an overview. It's really that we have all kind of text types written in all those scripts and languages. The collection is the major part of our papyri was coming to the Museo Egizio with the Bernardino Trovetti collection in 1824, and maybe 1/3 of the other papyri are coming from the excavations in the beginning of the 20th century by Schiaparelli and Farina mainly. Just to give you a small overview of the papyri, because I mean, if you had the time to look or go through the museum, you actually saw the most famous papyri, which are, for example, the Goldman papyrus, or the map, the Strike papyrus from the Medina. So here we have the hieratic written material, the tomb plan, for example, also writing in hieratic. We have several Book of the Dead papyri, which are funerary papyri. Funerary papyri with the funerary papyri. We have, which is here, for example, one of the royal tax examples, so the Turin king list on the backside of a taxation text. We have several demotic, so later period from the Ptolemaic period papyri, also be literate because demotic Greek papyri. Here another one from the excavations, and we have actually a huge and also an exceptional collection of 19 more or less in entirely preserved Coptic codices in papyrus from the 7th and 8th century BC. CE, sorry, because I'm switching with Italian. CE, which is actually really unique. So what you saw before are more or less complete manuscripts, which are which are known and received inventory numbers already 100 years ago or 200 years ago, more or less. However, what we still have in the storeroom is more than 25,000 fragments of papyri of all the kind of scripts and languages, which are stored in cardboard folders or in carton boxes, and partly completely, not partly, they are completely undocumented and unpreserved. So, and actually is the aim of the Turin Papyrus Online Platform, and actually what I started when I came here in 2017 is not just the documentation of the already known material, but is actually the documentation and conservation of the thousands of papyrus fragments, which belong either to the already known manuscript or they are, can be joined to new manuscripts which are so far unknown. So, however, I mean, this is actually also not new. Is how do you do this? Because since it's a huge puzzle, so we have, as I said, more than 25,000 pieces of puzzles, which maybe belong to, let's say, 1,000 puzzles. So, and as we all know, nowadays it is impossible. What actually was done 150 years ago by scholars is impossible to put all the pieces of puzzles on a table and start puzzling. So this is why we are luckily in the digital age. So of course the idea was to create a digital tool which is not just containing, for example, the images of the papyri, but is also containing metadata about the material features, the scribe practice, the text content, more and more. So this, of course, leads, as I said, to collaborative tool. And this goes a little bit back to what was said before, is in this case, it is about research, it is about collaboration, and because you can't do this alone. And this again leads to the project which started in 2017. It is was the idea to, yes, create a platform, a database. In our case, the database is, I mean, papyri databases you can find online in several ways. I mean, several museums present their papyrus collections, like the British Museum, also Berlin, the Vienna National Library, for example. They have databases, especially the Greek papyrologists are, I mean, they have online databases for more than 15 years now. What we are in a certain way are a little bit innovative is with our second work package. So of course, before we put data online, the first thing is to do the conservation of the fragments. So this was the first step. What which is done here in the museum is the material conservation and data acquisition, which means more about the material, physical material. And then it goes into data documentation, data connection, and data contextualization. And when I said this is something more or less innovative, is the database is structured actually in 3 levels. It is what we call an object. You can actually see it's all every piece of puzzle. So every fragment received an inventory number, also just a following number, which is treated as one object, one fragment, one piece of puzzle. Because the objects, so the fragments, can be joined together to a document, which is a papyrus scroll. And this is really something that we have in the collections. Probably nearly half of the papyrus collection here comes from the Medina. So this is from a New Kingdom village of workmen for the tombs of the Valley of the Kings, which we are creating the tombs of the Valley of the Kings and Queens in Egypt. And the community of Del Medina was rather productive in writing texts. Since papyrus was a rather expensive writing support, especially in the New Kingdom, it's changed a little bit in the later period, it was reused. So you find writing on both sides, on recto and verso, and not just one text, sometimes several texts. So this is why it was important in our case to make separations between a document, because normally people say that the papyrus has this content. First of all, a papyrus never has a content. The papyrus contains texts, and then we talk about the contents of the text. So in this case, we talk about text witnesses. And of course, again, we are now in the digital age. This means that we work with several, we are hyperlinked or linked directly via JSON and API with several other projects like the TOT project, which is a database project in Liège. For example, this is just an example here. The document, on the document level, we are connected to the Del Medina database from Leiden, but we are also connected now to several other databases which are working on demotic and Greek texts. And on the text witnesses, we are connected to databases which contain already translations of texts, like, for example, the Liège project, Ramses Online, but the German project, Thesaurus, Lingua Egyptiaca. But again, we are also connected now to Papyrus Online, so to Greek and Coptic databases. And because some of our already papyri with the catalog numbers are already translated. So this is the connection. And of course, being a museum, and this is why the data dissemination, this means how do we communicate also our research done to the general public, is a huge important point. So in general, the idea was also is it's not just to connect the fragments in one tool, but it's also actually to connect scholars, because what is mainly actually in Egyptology was a problem, or in Egyptian papyrology, is that scholars are working isolated. This means that there's one scholar working on 5-3 papyri, etc. This means the output of the research or the resource of research takes many years. So the problem is time. However, the idea was also, by creating the Turin Papyrus Online Platform, is to connect scholars, to let scholars working together on the materiality. So the database went online in 2018, and the first step, so this was a B version, and we created a website just for the papyrus collection, a little bit separated from the general public website, where you can find more information about this. But let's go back to the Turin Papyrus Online Platform. Just an overview of some researches here. You can't see all the list actually here. Is that actually you see that the staff of the Museo Egizio is rather small, and that we are really relying on the collaboration with researchers all over the world, although we are mainly focusing on European research, since the focus lies here on European universities, research on European universities. But however, I really always highlight the fact that we rely a lot on the help of student assistants in elaborating the high-resolution digital scans of our fragments. And actually, the student assistant later became also a PhD and later on postdoc students, because working with the collection is also the idea of educating the students, and later again to become more than this. Also, this is something important. In general, the Museo Egizio has now the Creative Commons no right reserved. This means all the images provided by the Papyrus database, but also all the other databases we have here, is under the Creative Commons license attribution domain CC0 no rights reserved. So this is in general the approach of the museum. It's open data, but really open data by everybody can study our material. Although this is what I cut it a little bit in the end, is about the authorship of the text content is. To put data online, especially when you work like we with translation, this means with the intellectual property of scholars. And this is, of course, something you always have to quote. This is really known, of course, when you quote a book or an article, a published work. However, digital data, which is the same actually, is always treated a little bit like, well, I don't have to quote it, or because it's accessible online. But this is not the case, because, as I said before, for example, we have translations also done, for example, by PhD students, which are already giving their intellectual property to the general public. And it is even more of importance for any scholar, but especially for, let's say, young scholars, to quote their work. But actually also by quoting the editors, it is also something, to be fair, it's also a protection for ourselves, because if somebody is doing a mistranslation, it's fine to say, oh, it is not my fault as coordinator of the project, please ask the scholar. But no, actually it is really for the protection of the intellectual property of each scholar. But however, this is really a huge discussion, and maybe we could discuss this later, because actually there are no written rules how you have to quote digital open data information. And this is, for example, also why several colleagues still wait to put data into the database until they are done with their research, or sometimes even until they are done with the published article. However, this is really a huge problem internationally, and this is really something maybe we can discuss also in this ambiente here. Just to give you an inside view of the database. So the database in general is very unattractive. It is really, the idea is also to be efficient in this case. Here you see an overview of the object level. This means you see how the fragments are listed very severally. And then here you have the document level. This means each fragment, the fragments here, for example, you see this, for example, here we have I can't see it here. Yes, it's a journal text. So the Necropolis Journal, you see here a small picture. I show you later an example of several fragments, about 15 fragments, and you have here an overview of each object. Because actually the database is, first of all, also in documentation for the Museo Egizio. Because as I said before, there is no documentation of 25,000 objects. Fragments. This means, for example, the object level is more of importance for us in the Museo Egizio in order to get an idea to do an inventory of our, let's say, of our material here. And then we have the writing level. So this is something here, for example, it's a nice example. Everybody knows the Turin gold mine papyrus. So they know the front side of the papyrus, but a lot of people are not aware on the back side of the papyrus, you have about 12 texts. This means this papyrus was used for about 15 to 20 years. Because the map on the front side was probably really a map of the Wadi Hammamat, which was used probably as a map in order to guide the workmen through the mountain in order to get the stones and gold for the production of statues, etc. in the Medina. At a certain point, this map was probably not in use any longer. But if you see this as it preserved around 1-2 meter papyrus in fragments, highly quality. So the New Kingdom papyri in general of high quality and smart as the Egyptians were. Of course, they reused the backside of the front of the papyrus. But it's not a reuse. Really, you have to think more like an archival reuse, so like you use a notebook, because you find on the backside, for example, drafts of letters. You find several drawings. You find a draft of amulet texts, etc. So it's not that you have to imagine that there is, for example, written a ritual text or funerary text which was recited. No, it's really used as a notebook in order to maybe copy something of this. But also, for example, there is an event or a note of an event connected actually to the Shrike papyrus. So this was added later. 5 years later, for example, to a letter to Ramses III. So, which is really more like used as a document text. And this is also interesting because this is something we also are very interested in, is how were the texts or the manuscripts used. So it is not just about each text. So it's a philological analysis, of course, of each text. But the problem is also, let's talk about the biography of object. This is actually the same as to understand, okay, this papyrus was at a certain point used as map, really as map papyrus, but later on, for more than 20 years, it was used under several scribes for several purposes. So this is why there is really a difference to do between the use of a manuscript and the use of text and the purpose of texts. So this is why a separation of each text, so this is why we call this text 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is highly of importance, and actually also for the date, because it's actually also wrong to date a papyrus. You can date, of course, the papyrus support, but what we do here is we date the text copy. And this is really something which is really confusing, because normally this papyrus is dated to the reign of Ramses III or IV, but actually the last text we have dates to the time of Ramses VI. So this means this is really something of rather importance of the study of our museum. As I said here, connections, and this is what you see here, is the connections are done mainly because we had for 4 years, from 2019 to 2023 March, and we still have, although we are not any longer financed, we have between the University of Basel and Liège and the Museo Egizio, the Crossing Boundaries project, which was a project focusing on the new Ramesside papyri, which are written on both sides. And in this, which was a European-funded lead agency project. And what you see here is actually something which was done by the researchers, that all the numbers here, for example, these are the undocumented fragments in different kind of folders. And this scholar, in this case, was Renaud Pietri as a postdoc. He connected all the fragments here and found out this is a copy actually of what we call the satirical letter of Hori. For the Egyptologists, this is, there is, for example, this is a copy of Papyrus Anastasi I. So we have a text copy of a text which is in British Museum. So we don't do the history, for example, of papyri as it was done with the books, but we do the history also of the text copies, which is interesting. And so this means we have here in our museum a copy of a letter which is attested on papyrus only a few times. And again, and so this is why I wanted to quote the Crossing Boundaries project, because this really relies highly on the collaboration between the colleagues here. I'm already over the time, so just to show you more the details here. So the object level, for example, here in this case, it's in papyrus objects, or because this is already inventory number here. On the object level, you have the pictures. You can zoom in the pictures, for example, just to show you here. Renaud Pietri was able, this is a very small fragment, as you can see. However, if you have a look on the handwriting, it's a very distinguished handwriting, which is really interesting because also we talk here about scriber practice and scribes itself. So this means, for example, we have several scribes in Del Medina, which can be connected between the Turin material, the British Museum material, and the Berlin material, for example. Then on the object level is, as I said, that the images can be are downloadable, but that you can also with the C driver already zoom in, and the scholars, they can communicate via comments here. So this means each colleague can write a comment and make it accessible to other colleagues if they wish to. But this can be done any user. Any user can create their own workspace. This was actually done also for students, because I use the database, for example, for teaching purposes, and students with their own account, they can really do their notes on the papyrus itself and also do their comments. So you can create your working space, which is important. You have something about the features, the material support. What we also have, and this goes back to connections, is that we are able to upload, for example, we have collaboration with the Berliner Wörterbuch, with the Oxford Griffith Institute, and we received the letters, or non-letters, notes by scholars, which we could upload in the database in order to give this here. Here is just, and I will finish with this, a few, and just an overview of how the document looks like. So on the document level is that, again, you have the images, and you have the images, the state of preservation. This is very detailed, the features of writing. The database is completely searchable. This is why we are so detailed. Scriber practice, and then, of course, and this is also important for scholars, you have several fields with information, but with translations. Translations can be done in 4 languages. We have the transliteration, and thanks to the collaboration with Serge Rosmodur, with the creator of JSesh, we implemented the JSesh tool, which is a tool to write hieroglyphs, because hieratic is readable not for everybody, but hieroglyphs should be at least readable for every Egyptologist. So this is why we do a transliteration in hieroglyphs. And the date here, we are connected again with the TOT project, which is a project about the data. This is also done not just with the hieratic collection. It will be done, or is already starting to with the upload of Greek papyrus, because we use Unicode in general. This means Greek. You can we work on our Greek papyri. This will be done also with the Arabic material. So in order to put the transliteration in other languages, and just finally. The database has a front end for users which are not registered. Registered users right now can actually have access to more than 30,000 fragments and about 500 documents. Users, which are collaborators, have access to 60,000 fragments and 700 documents. If you are just using, just for the general public, we put online more the general papyri, which are of more interest. We do not put online for now the 13,000 fragments, because they're not of interest for the general public. So people provide more information on general papyri, for example, Book of the Dead papyri, with the description and translation, etc. However, we do the same. What was done before is, of course, we implement what we do also for exhibitions in our permanent rooms. Is we on the website the information like videos. We put a lot of videos online. The explanations in interviews, etc., in order to make the text not through writing more visible, but also really in explanations via pictures and videos and interviews. And this, for now, shows already some interest, or more accessibility to the database and also to the website, because to describe text with text alone is mainly really something difficult to communicate to the public. So this was too long again, but thank you very much for the attention.